Hello, and thanks for joining us for Sustaining Us here on KLCS PBS. I'm David Nazar. Homeless in California, a tough and a challenging epidemic yet to be solved. And when we talk about homelessness in the Golden State, the first cities or communities mentioned are Los Angeles and the Bay Area. And for the obvious reason, there are tens of thousands of people, respectively, living on the concrete every day in these two places. Yet often not talked about is the homeless crisis in Orange County, California. This once suburban community, home to Disneyland, Angels baseball, and soccer moms, is now a massive urban metropolitan county with over 3 million people. A county also now dealing with its own homeless dilemma. The question is, can Orange County, unlike LA or the Bay Area, solve their situation? And that is where we begin our broadcast.
It is comprehensive, and it's a collaborative, and it's a bunch of cities in North Orange County, a bunch of nonprofits, a bunch of resources that work together in the region to help the homeless, to help people transition back into the community that are getting out of jail, and to help kids to stay out of gang violence and not get involved in family violence, all so they can have a successful path in life.
Buena Park Police Chief Corey Sainez is talking about the North Orange County Public Safety Collaborative, which in part is a program to battle back against homelessness in Orange County, California. Throughout OC, there are thousands of homeless people of all ages living on the streets in cities like Santa Ana, Anaheim, Fullerton, Buena Park, Stanton, Newport Beach, and Laguna Beach. Lack of affordable housing, the high costs of living, and the hot weather are just some of the reasons for this. Adding to the homeless problem in California, critics say, is a lack of political conviction, with the local and state leaders who keep promising to fix the homeless problem, yet never keep those promises. Chief Corey Sainez says that dynamic has been changing recently here in the OC, and this all began with a $20 million grant a few years ago that helped launch the North Orange County Public Safety Collaborative.
How are we going to do a better job? Because we did it all individually before. How are we going to work together and do a better job in making sure that we're providing the right services and identifying what we need as a group versus individually? And we did it. And it's 5 years in the making now.
Chief Sainez says part of the $20 million grant is going to fund the new Hope Center, a ground zero command center of sorts here in Orange County to bring all homeless resources together. HOPE is an acronym for Homeless Outreach Proactive Engagement.
It's a location not to where the people come, but to where the resources work together. So like our homeless liaison officers, our outreach workers, we're right next to a hospital here. We'll have some medical staff on board, our mental health workers from the county, some of our nonprofits that do work with the homeless will be here at this location, working together, sharing information. We have an application, a data application that we use to be able to keep track of people by name that need our services, what services they need. It all can be shared with them on a regular basis in the mornings before they go out in the county and do their thing.
Chief Sainez explains the primary goal of HOPE and the collaborative is to get the homeless away from their concrete zip code and relocate them to a place of housing and healing, something that in years past Orange County did not have a good track record of doing.
This is all about real-time information and sharing information. It's something that we didn't do a good job at in the county, and that was one of our efforts. And we've kind of finally gotten there, and so that everybody can work together, address the issues. For example, if Corey Sainez was homeless and I was in Buena Park last night, now I'm in Fullerton today, what were we doing with you? Where can we pick up? Where can we get you into a house? Where can we get you the services you need, so that next person that stops Corey Sainez will know, okay, this is where we ended up with you. Now let's finish doing what we were doing. And before we weren't doing that, so we never really knew.
Chief Sainez explains that new technology is advancing the process of keeping track of the homeless and getting them help. The tech is known as the Outreach Grid. A nonprofit company in Northern California created the grid.
It got a little frustrating. And now we have this data application on our phones that we can pull up by name and see where we were in the process, what services you have already been provided, and how can we help you today. And it's taking those next steps to get that individual into those services that they need. We needed some kind of database, some kind of application that we could all share. We could identify an individual, their needs, the resources, all that kind of stuff. We first started using it when we did a census of our homeless back in 2018, I believe it was, 2017, 2018. And so we started a by name database that we were able to track people. And at that time, I think we were able to get 1,375 names of individuals that were on the street. And so since that time, we've tracked those 1,300 people and been able to say where they've gone, have they gotten out of homelessness? And I think 680 of them have gotten out of homelessness now.
Tiffany Pang is the Outreach Grid co-founder and CEO.
Outreach Grid is a software platform available on iOS, Android mobile web that allows agencies, service providers to collaborate together on homelessness information from first contact to housing. And how it began is near and dear to my heart. I was born and raised in San Francisco. San Francisco 20 odd years ago looks very different from what it is today. I was raised in a single parent family household. It was just my mom and my younger sister and myself. My mom was an immigrant from Hong Kong, and 20 odd years ago, she could navigate San Francisco and figure out how to live and support herself and support us. I didn't really appreciate this until after I graduated high school and went off to college in the East Coast and then came back into San Francisco as an adult, how much things has changed. And if my mom had come to America today, it would be very difficult for her to navigate it. Increasing cost of living, increasing rent, and anytime that happens in a city, you start having people fall through the cracks.
20 years ago, much of OC was a quiet suburban community, a community where people could escape the madness of living in Los Angeles and live about an hour away in neighborhoods that were not dealing with the same challenges of LA and the Bay Area: homelessness, crime, cops. However, these days, OC is dealing with all of this. Knowing that, Tiffany took her tech engineering background and her app to Orange County, believing her outreach grid could be a part of the homeless solution here.
We're able to do matching a lot better. We can understand someone's needs and what is available a lot better, as opposed to me calling you, a shelter provider, and say, hey, do you have a bed available, and do you have one that is available that can accommodate for pets? Those kinds of things are handled in the app. That kind of logic is handled in the app. You don't have to rely on getting someone on the phone. It happens with a notification. It notifies the shelter, they respond to it, and there's this happy, virtuous cycle that happens between the outreach worker and the shelter operator, where as the outreach worker, I'm getting a response and I know what to do next with my client. I'm not waiting with them an hour or two to get a response. I can quickly get a response with this client, move on to the next client, and so on and so forth. One of the challenges was, how do we understand encampments in our city? How do we understand how they're evolving, whether they're still active or inactive, are they still occupied by individuals, and what services have been dispensed to them? That's something that service providers didn't know.
Fullerton Police Chief Robert Dunn is also involved with the North Orange County Public Safety Collaborative. Chief Dunn admits prior to the collaborative, cities like Fullerton and Buena Park did not have much success with the homeless. In fact, critics often accused Orange County law enforcement and OC municipalities of worsening the homeless problem, in part with cops trying to deal with the homeless population on their own, the criminalization, the lack of services, the lack of communication.
In a siloed way, we looked at it within the borders of our cities, we responded, and I think what we've realized through this collaborative is that when we respond, so if Fullerton took an effort 5 years ago, we would push those who are experiencing homelessness to all the other cities around us, and then they would plan something, and they would engage, and they would push them back to Fullerton. And so basically, we weren't gaining any ground, we were just moving the problem around the county. And what the collaborative did was bring everybody together and say, man, we've been doing it wrong.
Wrong in the sense that OC police departments were fending for themselves, so to speak, trying to combat homelessness. Like Fullerton, cities were basically relocating the homeless out of their backyard, so homeless people were someone else's problem. Temporary fix? Possibly. Bad idea? Definitely. Another problem was that taxpayer money was being spent, or in many cases, wasted. Now, as part of the collaborative, there is more accountability and oversight. Chief Dunn partners with other chiefs like Corey Sainez as well as homeless shelters, nonprofits, mental health services, where all these agencies work together in a laser-focused, coordinated approach instead of haphazardly going it alone.
The outcomes are better. And so I think that really is what's changed for us, is that kind of collaborative effort, looking at it more regionally than specific in our silo, and then bringing the right stakeholders to the table to get the best outcomes. So I think first and foremost, what makes us different is that we're testing the efficacy. We're not afraid of the data. And so by starting out with our partners at Outreach Grid, for example, and from the very onset of this collaborative, we were able to start gathering data so we can see that when we're out there and engaging and we're providing those resources or offering the resources, where are they falling out? Where are people not being successful in the continuum of care, if you will? And so now we can take that data and say, okay, we have monies that we're putting into these 3 areas, but this isn't working very well. So we're constantly trying to better the programs that we're doing, being good stewards of the public funds, of course, because that's our responsibility.
Daniel Smart got help from the collaborative. Daniel is a Navy veteran and a Southern California native. When his Navy days were over in the early 80s, he was lost. No job, no money, nowhere to live.
No hope, hopeless. Not care. Because once you're out there in that cold world on the streets, you lose compassion real quick. So you don't even care what you're going to do to anybody else. Nobody matters but you. And it just spirals down.
Over his adult life, with no money and no employment, Daniel had to take shelter from anyone who was offering. His mom, his girlfriend, a local church. However, just recently, Daniel finally found permanent housing. Heroes Landing, where Daniel now lives, is a 75-unit apartment building in Santa Ana, specifically designed to provide housing and resources for homeless vets. The North Orange County Public Safety Collaborative partners with a nonprofit, Jamboree Housing, which helped build Heroes Landing. Daniel says the collaborative treated him with kindness and compassion, something often missing, he says, when dealing with the homeless.
Don't you see where you're at? Can't you see how dirty and filthy it is that your area that you're living in? Without picking on them, that they would just be like human beings instead of like animals. The way about doing that is, I know throwing a lot of money around, it doesn't do a whole bunch. There's got to be some heart in it, and professionalism and patience.
Damian Fonseca is an outreach coordinator here in North Orange County. As a social service worker and field liaison, he helps connect homeless people to things like housing services, mental health help, and substance abuse treatment. Damian says the collaborative and the outreach grid have been vital in connecting the homeless to the appropriate resources.
It's important to have police support and have the social worker together, because it's us that are engaging these individuals, and they're there to not only protect us, but protect the individual and the client themselves. This is probably the first time we see that, where cities and law enforcement are working together to try to tackle homelessness in Northern Orange County. It does have a big impact overall. A lot of people that are experiencing homelessness on the street, they have some trauma. So trauma leads into mental health. So it's all connected, and sometimes while they're on the street, they lean towards substances because it's a difficult situation, and sometimes people have the history of substance use already with them. So it goes hand in hand. So it's a good way that we stay connected and kind of not monitor, but keep track of where the individual's been, so we could locate them if they need more services or follow up with them at any point in time.
I've been a police chief for 11 years now, and this is probably my most rewarding program that I've ever been involved in.